Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I am here today to read you a book called I Am Jackie Robinson by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. See if I can get that focus to stay on. There we go. And before I start reading, I wanted to remind you that now that we've moved into narrative nonfiction, we need to get our minds ready for these types of books too, just like we did with our expository text. And so the first thing I do is I pay attention to what sort of text is this. As I take a minute to look at this book, obviously it doesn't look the same as a lot of my expository books, because a lot of my expository nonfiction books had pictures, like actual photographs, where this is more like a graphic novel or a cartoony kind of picture. So that's one difference I noticed. And then I take a second to look at the back, and it says, I am Jackie Robinson. I will always lead the way. Jackie Robinson always loved sports, especially baseball. He could run, leap, and throw better than any kid around. But he lived at a time when the rules weren't fair to African Americans. Even though Jackie was a great athlete, he wasn't allowed on the best teams just because of the color of his skin. Jackie knew that sports were best when everyone and every color played together. He became the first black baseball player on a major league team, and his bravery helped lead the way to equality in all sports in America. So that gives me some thinking already before I begin to read, that this is not like my normal expository text. This feels more like almost like a fiction book, right? Where it has a story about somebody, but it's a true story, a story about their life. So again, I'm already noticing that this is that narrative nonfiction. So then it says for me to rev up my mind, I'm going to look for text features. And again, because it's a narrative nonfiction, I'm not going to see those text features. Of course, I see pictures, but these aren't pictures that help me learn like they did in expository nonfiction, where it was a diagram or a chart or a photograph. These are pictures that help tell Jackie Robinson's life story. And so I can do a quick picture walk, and I can see at the beginning that I have him when he's little. And because the way this illustrator chooses to illustrate the book, he always seems to be a young child, but I can tell that he's growing up. Just because we started with that baby picture, and now we can see that there are other adults in the picture. So I'm just wondering if this is like his life story, and that it does go from when he's little to when he's older. Okay, so I've got an idea right now that that's probably how this story is going to go. The beginning of his life to later in his life. Then it says to recall prior knowledge and build expectations. Well, I don't know a lot about Jackie Robinson other than what they told me on the back of the book, which is what I knew, that he was the first black baseball player. But outside of that, I don't know a lot about him. So I don't have a lot of prior knowledge to build on. I do know a little bit about the time he grew up in the civil rights movement, so I'm wondering if those two time periods kind of overlap. I'll find that out as I read. But again, I don't have a lot of background information. And then it says, identify if the text is nonfiction, whether it follows a familiar story template. And like I said, by looking at the pictures, I kind of think it probably does, in the sense that it follows him like from little to old. But I also know how biographies tend to go, and they start out by telling us a little bit about how this person was as a young child, and maybe some of the problems that they encountered and how they solved those problems, which helps them become what they eventually become famous for. So I'm going to guess that it does follow that familiar template for biographies. And so now that I've gotten ready to read my book, it's time to jump in. So readers, can you make sure that you have your reader's notebook, your read aloud notebook ready to go, so we can jot down some of the big things that we are going to learn about Jackie Robinson. It's kind of like when we take big steps in our fiction books to retell them, but it's also kind of like when we were doing main idea and supporting details. I'm just jotting down the important stuff, all right, and as brief as I can so that I don't spend more time writing than I do reading. All right, so let's hop on in. Turn that light off and see if it helps the glare or not. It doesn't, so I'm going to leave it on because maybe once we get in the book, that glare will go away. So I am Jackie Robinson. I am Jackie Robinson. Now, if you didn't have that background knowledge before, you can clearly see that he is a baseball player, right? Kind of gives it away in that picture. Sometimes it's hard to be brave. I agree, Jackie. My mother was brave, and she liked brave people. When I was born, the youngest of 5 kids, she even named me after someone brave. I wonder who it was. His middle name will be Roosevelt. Jack Roosevelt Robinson. Why Roosevelt? After President Teddy Roosevelt, he fought to make sure black people were treated the same as everyone else. That's a lot for little Jackie to live up to. You'll see. I'm not worried. I'm not learning a lot about Jackie, but I'm learning something about Mom. Mom was brave. Mom liked brave people, but she also believed in her son, even from a very young age. But having a brave name doesn't make you a brave person. That's certainly true. In fact, as a kid, I didn't like sleeping alone. I used to sleep in Mom's bed. Even when she tried to bribe me, I wouldn't leave. Sounds like a typical kid. I'll give you a quarter to go to your sleep in your room. That sounds like something a mom would do. Maybe me. Shh. Not a chance. It's better here. He's not acting very brave right now, is he? One of the scariest moments came when I was 8 years old. I was outside and a girl from across the street called me a terrible name. I was so mad, I yelled a name right back at her. Her father came running immediately. He didn't like that a black boy was standing up to his white daughter. We were the only black family on our block. What did you call her? She started it. I don't remember who threw the first rock. Wow. I know that that's not a nice thing to do, but that's kind of a brave thing to do, is to throw a rock at an adult. Probably not a smart thing, but kind of brave. But the fight was on. Me versus her dad. Get him, Dad! I had a good arm, but no one wins in a rock fight. Well, he's pretty smart, because they don't. Eventually, the girl's mother came out and broke it up. Like I said, the world can be a scary place. But even as a kid, there was one thing that always made me happy. I'm wondering what it is. Again, I know he's a baseball player. Here he's noticing he has a really good arm. I bet you it has something to do with playing sports. Here we go. Sports. And winning at sports. Okay, that's 2 things. I loved playing everything. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, marbles, even dodgeball. All the kids would get in a circle. White, black, Hispanic, Asian. We all played together. The rules were simple. If the ball hit you, you were out. I'd duck, jump, leap, and of course throw. And throw. And throw. By the time I was done, I'd be the last one standing. Are they mad that I won? Don't know. Fall down. Maybe they won't notice. But the truth was, They weren't mad at me for winning. They appreciated the skill it took. Those childhood games were some of the only times I wasn't judged by the color of my skin. Hooray, Jackie! How'd he do it? And what's the B on his hat stand for? I'm glad that kid said that because I was wondering too. His name doesn't have a B in it. What does it stand for? You'll see. Let's try 2 more pages, readers, and then we're going to pause. Still, that didn't make all of my problems go away. At the local public pool in Brookside Park, you could only go swimming if you were white. If your skin was black, they locked you out. Don't they know how hot it is out here? Trust me, they know. Notice the signs on the pool for whites only. Whites only. That doesn't sound nice. When people complained, they gave us one day each week, Wednesday. Every Wednesday from 2 to 5 p.m., they'd open the pool to anybody black, Mexican, or Asian. Don't they know how mean that is? Trust me, they know. Oh, come on. He even swims in his hat? Maybe the B is for buoyant. So readers, I'm going to stop right there because I've read a lot, right? My brain is pretty full. Now, typically in the beginning of a book, like a fiction book, which is kind of how biographies are written, they follow a person's life. At the beginning, we're just kind of getting to know our character. So what I know so far is that he loves sports. And he lived at a time when things weren't fair for black people. So I'm just going to jot down he wasn't treated fairly because of the color of his skin. And then maybe in parentheses I'll put rocks and pool, just to remind myself that those were 2 examples of when he wasn't being treated fairly. Zoom that in so my friends in the back can see. So readers, today, as you start reading your biographies, and I know some of you got to start yesterday, and that's awesome, but as you start, and maybe you're starting another new biography today, take a minute to rev up your mind by thinking, what sort of text is this? Looking at the pictures to help you figure out what that text will mostly be about. Think about your prior knowledge on that subject. It might not be a lot, and that's okay. And then see if you can pay attention as you read to see if it follows a familiar story plot, like problem and solution. And then last but not least, readers, as you read today, keep track of the big things, the important things that happen in your person's life, so that you can see how they eventually ended up being well known for something. Happy reading, readers.